Okay, so welcome, ladies. Welcome to Wealth Clinic this month of August. So, for those of you who are wondering what Wealth Clinic is, I know this is our very first one. And like as I was saying, it's something that I'm hoping to do probably every 4 to 6 weeks. But really, the whole idea behind wealth clinics is to provide a space where we as women can talk about the issues that are relevant to our ability to build our wealth. And not only that, issues that are relevant to our well-being. So our emotional, our physical, and our mental well-being. And so the idea came to me, and as someone who loves to teach and loves to engage in topics that are not only interesting, but very important and very relevant, I thought that we could get together once every few weeks and speak on a specific topic. And today we're actually talking about confidence and clarity for professional women. And why is this a topic that's important? We'll get into that. But briefly, for those who don't know me yet, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Yewande. I am a medical doctor. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm also a financial literacy educator. And all that really means is that using my expertise in how the mind works and also my knowledge in how money works, I try to simplify the language of money so that you can go on to have a stress-free relationship with your finances and of course build the wealth and have all the well-being that you deserve, really. And please excuse, this should say educator, not educate, but you get the idea. I love to educate as well. So why confidence, why clarity, and why professional women? As I've alluded to already, I believe that as women, our confidence does have a direct correlation with how much money we earn. Let's just be frank. The more confident we are, the more opportunities are available to us, right? The more we're going to seek out opportunities and not stay in our comfort zone, the more we're going to negotiate higher salaries or higher pay, the more we're going to invest in maybe ways that might be unconventional, the more we're going to seek out knowledge, the more we're going to ask questions that are relevant to how we are as women. Okay, so confidence is very important when it comes to building wealth. It's also very important when it comes to our emotional well-being too, as well as our mental well-being. Right? When we're not confident in ourselves, we're not confident in who we are, it's very easy to take on what other people may have said about us, whether it's growing up, whether it's, in our younger years, in our preteen, our, young adult years. It's very easy for us to take on what other people have said and use that to dictate how we live our lives. And that can cause a lot of anxiety, sometimes even depression. But when we're confident in ourselves, it's easier, at least easier, to let go of some of the things that may be holding us back based on what people have said or what we believe people are thinking about us. Ultimately, the goal is to improve our capacities to build wealth and maximize that potential, and also to keep ourselves in a state where we're at peace, right? Where we're happy ultimately. And why clarity? Clarity is also important because there's a quote that says that if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. And so the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis are like putting one foot in front of the other. And if we don't have a clear destination in mind, we might be taking steps, but those steps might end up taking us in the wrong direction. I've heard a story, it's not a real story, but a story of a man who was climbing up a ladder. And he spent years and years, just this tall ladder that was leaning up against a wall, sort of like climbing the corporate ladder in a sense, right? So he was going up this ladder and up this ladder and up this ladder and up this ladder and was putting a lot of time, making a lot of sacrifices along the way. And when he finally got to the top of the ladder, he realized, oh my goodness, this ladder has been leaning up against the wrong wall. And so very similar to us, when we are putting in all this work and spending in all this time and putting in all this effort, making sacrifices, we need to be sure that the wall, that this ladder we're climbing up, this ladder that we're climbing up is the right wall for ourselves. And this is a very personal decision, right? Sometimes we'll make decisions based on what other people expect from us or what we see other people doing, but we have to make sure that we are clear on where we want to end up at the end of the day. So first of all, I want to thank members of our community who presented questions and case studies. And so what I'm going to do is present the first case study, and then the questions that were raised in the emails and messages, I'm also going to answer along the way. And so I'm actually going to read out the case study that was sent to me, which says, I have a good job, which is classified as good because it pays very well. It pays very well. It provides financial security to live a comfortable life, basic without any excesses, take care of family and have a bit left over. However, I don't like this good job. My dream job, which I love so much and I'm passionate about, won't pay this much. And I can't sustain my family on this. I would have to live way below my means and overstretch myself. My dream job is kind of like volunteering or working at an NGO, all about helping people. The crux is, do I stick to the job and have a fixed income and be unhappy, or move to my dream job, be happy, but income is lower? So once again, thank you for presenting that question, that case. And as I go through the next few slides, I want you ladies here to also think about how you would address this scenario. What would you do if you are in the shoes of the person that was presented in the case, okay? And I'm definitely going to open up to discussion once we get to that part. So just to summarize, this is a woman with a good job that provides financial security. She lives a comfortable life, but she does not like this job. There's a dream job that is available to her, but it has lower pay. However, even with that lower pay, it'll also cause a negative impact on her lifestyle. And as she shared, the question that she has is, do I stick to the good job, have a fixed income, and be unhappy? Or do I move to my dream job, be happy, but have to deal with the consequences of a lower income? And so at this point, I want to present some studies that have actually been done on that age-old question of, does money buy happiness? So researchers have actually done the study, have actually looked into this question in various studies. And in 2010, there was sort of a landmark study that was presented by Kahneman and Deaton out of Princeton University. And so they studied people, they surveyed them, they asked them a number of questions. Of course, these were people who were living in the United States. And ultimately, the conclusion that they came up with is that money does buy happiness, but only up to a maximum of $750,000 per year. So if you earn beyond $750,000 per year, a higher income does not really add up. It doesn't really impact your happiness. It doesn't impact how you sort of perceive your well-being. So yes, even though money does buy happiness up until a certain point, beyond $750,000, it doesn't impact happiness. What they also found that was interesting, that may be also relevant to our case, is that when people had a lower income, when they went through challenging situations such as an illness or divorce, when they went through really tough times, they actually scored lower on the scale of happiness when compared to people who had a higher income and also went through tough times. Now, in 2012, so in 2021, this year that we're in right now, a new study came out. Who actually the author of the study, Killingsworth, based out of University of Pennsylvania, the Wharton School, University of Pennsylvania, he really wanted to take a deeper look at what this landmark study in 2010 had shown. And when he did his own study, he found that, you know what, money actually does matter beyond the $750,000 mark. That even though the previous studies have shown that there's sort of this peak in income when it relates to happiness, that actually there is this consistent growth in how people rank their happiness beyond that $750,000 mark. So two studies that are giving different opinions. And when Killingsworth took a deeper dissection into his own study, he found that people reported the reason why they felt a general sense of improved well-being at a higher income was because they had more flexibility. Right? They had more autonomy. They didn't feel like they were tied down to a specific job or a specific career. They had a better sense of control over their lives. So yes, we know that we're not in fully control of our lives, but just the fact that they could make decisions that could impact the course of their lives without depending on the financial implications gave them a good sense of well-being. They had options. And when I was reading through the study, I had to ask myself, okay, this is a study that was released in 2021. So I would imagine that some of the data may have been collected during the pandemic. And I do wonder, especially knowing that over the past several months, we've been hearing about the Great Resignation, where people have been leaving their jobs in search of a better life, quote unquote, whether it's a different job that has more benefits or a job that is more understanding. Essentially, those that felt tied down to a specific kind of job have been leaving the Great Resignation. And I wonder how much the pandemic actually impacted this more recent study where people realize that, you know what, I do want to have a better sense of control over my life. I do want to have that flexibility. I do want to have those options. And of course, having more money allows you to do that. Now, going back to the case, I think it's very important to realize that clarity is so key when it comes to deciding what to do in this situation. And at this point, I would just like to open up the floor. If you ladies are able to offer your opinions, what do you think that the writer in the case study that was presented, what do you think she should do, and what's your thought process? So again, the question is, do I leave this job that I really don't like because it pays better and my family is more comfortable, or do I sacrifice the comfort of my family and for my happiness and for and chase a job, start a job that actually makes me feel good, a job that makes me feel happy, a job where I'm not miserable, where I feel fulfilled? What do you ladies think?
Hi, Yewande.
Hi.
So, my question would be, can I do both? Because like you said, money is important. But again, what you want to do is important. So while building wealth and trying to get to a point where you have invested a lot of money and you feel like, okay, my returns on my investments can take care of my family comfortably. Until then, I would say keep doing the job that pays you while doing your passion on the side.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for offering that. So the idea that why does it have to be all or nothing? Can I find a way where I'll continue to earn a good income, but then find something else where I get that sense of fulfillment, get that passion from that? Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll say, obviously, at different stage in life, you want different things. And for example, the younger me would do what I don't like just to make money if it means I'm climbing up the career ladder faster. But I totally understand where this person is coming from. And there are times when, in life, you just have to think about it, that I just want to be happy. All that money and how much, whatever career is paying you would not matter. You want to just, take maybe cut down to 3 days of work just so you can spend more time with your family. And I think for this person to be willing to sacrifice, some of all this comfort, they really need to love that particular work or whatever job it is they're considering. Because if they don't love that particular job, then they need to find something else they love, to be able to make that move. The key thing for me is they need to prepare. And this is something that you talk about all the time in terms of having a nest of, the nest egg there where you can get to your savings for maybe 3 or up to 6 months.
Yeah.
So that whilst you, work on this new job where you probably have to take a pay cut and it's something you love, you have that savings somewhere that you can dip into to, support the comfort things that you like to get for yourself or for your family.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for that. So a couple of really important points you raised there. Number one, what stage of life are you at, right? There are some people that, at the earlier stage of their career, it's like, let's just get this money by any means necessary, make the sacrifices that are required. But then as you get older, right? And this is something that we see commonly actually when we approach our mid-30s to 40s, women are more likely to make that shift into really looking after their happiness as opposed to climbing the corporate ladder, right? So really taking care of that. You also mentioned preparation. And in fact, that's been my story. And I'm so thankful that when I left the ER in 2019, even though I had full intentions of going back, I had the flexibility not to go back. I had the flexibility to stay at home with my kids for a year plus, because in the earlier parts of our marriage, my husband and I, we saved one income. So we earned 2 incomes, but we saved one, and we were really kind of cautious and intentional about that. So what that meant was that we were able to save up a certain amount. And could we have done other things with the money? Yes, for sure. Did we have other plans? Yes, but it was a cushion that allowed us to say, okay, what are our goals? Are we able to put this money towards sustaining us as we make this transition? And honestly, that peace of mind was priceless. So if there's one thing that I would say, just to buttress the point that Lola made, is being prepared. Being prepared. I'm a huge advocate for having that flexibility, that flex fund, where if you're starting to feel broken down by work, or you're starting to feel like you want to head off in a different direction, you have the option to do so. So thank you very much. Thank you. Any other points from the case, what you would do or what your thoughts are, or any other questions? Okay, so similar to what Irene has offered, similar to what Lola has offered, this is something that you have to be very thoughtful about. Lola had also said this must be a job that you really, really love. And how do you know whether you're making a decision from an emotional point of view, or if you're just making a decision if you're actually been logical and thoughtful about it? One thing I always suggest that people do, it's an exercise that I do very, very regularly, actually with almost all my clients, is doing a values exercise. What are your life's goals and what are your life's values? The other thing that I love to do is asking, when you're 80, when you're 90, when you're in your twilight years, and you start to reflect back on what your life has been, what are the things that you hope to have accomplished? Because the truth is, the end of a matter, right? The end of our lives is based on the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. And so are your goals actually taking you towards that end point, that 80-year-old, that 90-year-old that you envision for yourself? So thinking about the end, right? The end of your life, essentially, not to be too morbid, but that will really help guide the decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis. The other thing is, what are your values? I always find it so interesting to find out what people's values are, because we're all different. And so usually what I'll do is that I will send a worksheet out with a list of different values, and ultimately get people to narrow it down to about 3 or 5, between 3 and 5. 5 is the maximum. And again, it's so interesting to me to see how people name their values and how they make their decisions. I worked with somebody who, during the pandemic, she was having a really, really hard time. And when we did the values exercise, one of the things that came up was community, a sense of belonging. And of course, here, when we had those lockdowns, it was sort of like lockdown after lockdown after lockdown. And then finally, just about 3 months ago, when we came out of lockdown, in addition to all the hard work she had been doing, of course, she was doing a lot of work on herself. But then as soon as she was able to gather with her friends, play the sports activities that she was a big part of her life, it was like she started to get brighter and brighter and brighter. And it just gives you that, and this happens a lot. Like once people are able to identify their core values and they start investing time and effort and energy into them, it's like they start to fill their cup. And so what are your goals? What are your values? What are the things that fill your cup? And are the decisions that you're making on a day-to-day basis filling that, fulfilling that? Are they taking you in the right direction? The other question that requires clarity is, what are your financial goals? As Lola also had said before, if you have a specific financial goal that you're trying to reach, say you want to have saved $100,000 by age 35 or whatever it might be, or you want to retire by 50 or retire by 40, whatever it might be, that will also help guide the decisions that you're making. People who don't have those financial goals it might be an easier decision from them to walk away from a high-paying job and stick to something that they love. But if it's very important to you to buy a home for your parents, for example, then that might make the decision easier to say, you know what, let me just stick to this job because it pays more than give myself a pay cut or than, step down to a lower paying job, even though I know that I'll be happier. The other thing that I think is very important that we don't often think about is this concept of opportunity cost. One thing I always like to say is that when you're saying yes to something, you are saying no to something else. Because of course, we're only one person. We do have a finite amount of energy. So if you're giving your energy to something, you're taking it away from something else. The same way that if you're giving your money into something, whether it's to buy a new car, you're taking away that money from something else, whether it's an investment that you could have made. So there's always an opportunity cost. There's always something that you're giving up. So one question to ask in this scenario is, what are you giving up by staying at a job that you hate? What are you giving up by staying at a job that you hate? Are you giving up your peace of mind? Are you giving up your sense of fulfillment? Are you giving up that dream of what you want to be at the age of 80 and 90? What are you giving up? And then conversely, what are you giving up by leaving a higher paying job? In this scenario, there was actually a $2,000 difference per month between the two salaries, right? And so that's $2,000 per month. That will lead up to $2,400 per year, if I'm doing my math right. And then now multiply that by the number of years left over in your working career, right? And so knowing that that's a lot of money, is it worth the sacrifice? So really being thoughtful about what you're giving up will also help you decide what to do, what decision to make. And then the other thing that I also want to remind everyone is that please don't make a permanent decision based on how you're feeling in the moment. It's easier said than done, but sometimes the things that we don't like about a situation might actually be temporary. They might actually be temporary. So I'd like to know, what don't you like about this job? Can we really take a deeper sense into the thing, a deeper dive into what you don't like? Is it that you don't like that the environment is dull, or is it that you don't like that, what is it? Is it the environment? Is it a co-worker that is making life stressful for you? Is it that you are in meetings and you feel like your voice isn't being heard, or that you're anxious all the time? One question I would really love to know is, what is it that you don't like about the job? And is it a temporary situation? And if it is a temporary situation, I'm finding that many women do not have the confidence to address that temporary situation. So one of the questions that came up when I reached out to my community, to you ladies here, about, okay, what is it that you would like to know when it comes to confidence and clarity? One of the things that came up was mansplaining. So maybe you're in a meeting, or maybe you're about to give a presentation, and this dude comes from nowhere and starts telling you your job or what you're supposed to do. Yet we don't have the confidence to put that person in their place and say, you know what, I've been doing this for X number of years. I've got this. I appreciate your input, but I'm good, right? Not many of us might have that confidence to say that. Or the other thing that came up is not being able to say no, right? Taking on too much on our plate because we're worried about saying no. Or what will people think? Will they think I'm not a team player? Will they think I don't deserve the promotion that I have my eye on? And so all those things tie into confidence, right? Confidence to be able to change a situation that might be temporary. So I just want to quickly run through this list of tips and strategies that I found helpful for myself, right? And I've also seen it very helpful for other people when it comes to building confidence. I sent an email out a couple of nights ago about a movie called Catch Me If You Can. It features Leonardo DiCaprio. And in that movie, which when I searched on Wikipedia, it's actually based on a true story, so they say, of a man. He wasn't even 19 years old when he had conned everyone into believing that he was a doctor at some point. He was a lawyer at some point. He was a pilot, all three high-risk professions. And so to me, I just find that whole idea of confidence very interesting. And I've also seen it play out in my life too, where on the inside, I start to feel nervous, unsure, but I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to quote unquote pretend, right? Even though that might not be the most comfortable way to think about it, but it's sort of like, okay, what would a confident person do? Think about somebody that you know is confident. What would a confident person do? And sort of wear the cloak of that person and show up as that person. Or imagine yourself, what if I was a confident person? What would the confident version of me do? One thing I find really helpful is watching my posture, sitting up straight, looking people in the eye, watching my tone. I know many times, especially in my previous job as an ER physician, when things get very stressful, I watch other people working and they start to get flustered. And as women, sometimes we get excited and the tone of our voice gets higher and higher and higher pitched. And so I'm very conscious of bringing it down, like bringing my baritone, putting some bass in my voice. So that way, that projection comes out more confident and more clear than someone who appears to be flustered. The idea of practicing, whether it is practicing a presentation, practicing a speech, practicing for an interview, the more you practice, the more confident that you're going to feel. And I really hope that you understand the importance of practicing. So I'm just reading the chat here, and Veronica says that has saved me a lot in presentations, and especially when I'm not fully prepared, right? Are you talking about the posture, the tone? Which part, what has really saved you? Which one has really saved you? I'd love to know. The other thing is, what are remind yourself daily about your accomplishments. So one of the questions that came up as I was gathering questions for today was the idea of coming back from maternity leave. And having been on maternity leave once and had to come back to the emergency department, I also have that experience. But the truth is, I had to remind myself consistently of all the things that I had accomplished, all my training, all the times that I resuscitated patients, all the times that patients had sent me letters or emails to my directors, just reminding myself that, you know what, Yewande, you are a great doctor. Yewande, you can do this. You've got this. And so whether it's you've taken a break and you're coming back, or it is that you're starting to feel unsure in your role, I love the idea, and I've also seen it work, of writing down all your accomplishments, because we tend to forget, honestly, especially as women, our accomplishments are not top of mind for us. But when you actually take some time to write it down and remind yourself daily, put it by your mirror, put it by your bedside, and remind yourself daily. I've also expressed that for me, the word of God is so powerful to me because I believe that the word of God is true. The Bible, what it says is true. And there's so many things that God has said about me in the Bible that when I start to say them out loud, I'm like, yeah, that's true. I am wonderfully made, fearfully and wonderfully made. Yeah, God hasn't given me the spirit of timidity, but one of power, of love, and of a sound mind, of self-control. And so when I start to remind myself of these things, it really, really does help. Very different from affirmations, I believe, because affirmations, usually people just print them out from somewhere, or they write it down because someone says they should write it down, or they say them because someone else has said them. But if you don't believe what you're saying, it's very hard for those affirmations to actually get you to the point where you start to feel confident, because you're almost contradicting yourself. But if you're reminding yourself of what is true about who you are, then that's more likely to boost your confidence. Okay. And Veronica says, mostly tone, but also posture. I find that putting my hands to work and looking people in the eye does the magic. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. I also encourage people to build a confidence toolkit. And this is whether it's like body image issues, or whether it's your confidence with your accomplishments at work. Have a folder on your desktop, or maybe even a box or a drawer, where you have all the emails that people have sent you, where you have compliments that people have given to you, where you have maybe screenshot things, that emails that people have sent you, and put them on a folder that you label confidence toolkit. And whenever you feel down, or whether you feel like you're not good enough, or you don't have what it takes, go back to that toolkit and read what people have said about you. And exercise, once again, I think I've shared this many times before, is to reach out to friends, loved ones, people that you trust, and ask them the simple question: what are 3 to 5 of my most valuable qualities? What do you come to me for? What are some of the things that you find are my strengths, right? And get them to send you a letter, and keep that, add that to your confidence toolkit. So whenever you start to doubt who you are, refer to it, and again, remind yourself of your value, your worth, your accomplishments. Speak up and use your voice. This is, again, going back to the idea of mansplaining, where people are trying to talk on your behalf, or where people are trying to speak over you, or you feel like you have nothing to add. Even if it's just a question that you ask, oh, sorry, can you say that differently? Or can you clarify what you mean? Even if it's just a question that you have, ask it, so that at least people know that you have a voice, right? Don't let that inner critic, the next point is addressing your inner critic. Don't let that inner critic tell you, oh, that what are you even going to say? People aren't even going to understand you. That's such a stupid question. You're going to look so stupid. All the horrible things that we tend to say to ourselves, right? Some of the things that we won't even say to our enemies, right? That inner critic can be so harsh in telling us that. But addressing the inner critic is always so important in saying, that's not true. Again, this is when those reminders come into place, where you start to remind yourself of times that you've asked a question and nobody laughed at you, or times when, you asked a question that maybe to you seemed stupid, but everybody was like, oh yeah, I had the same question too. So reminding yourselves when that inner critic shows up, advocating for yourself and saying, no, actually, I am going to speak up, because in the past, it has been shown that I ask really good questions. The other thing that will help with your confidence is this whole idea of mind reading, right? Again, saying that people will think I'm weird, or people will think I'm stupid, or if I ask this question, or maybe you're giving a presentation and everybody is looking bored, or they're yawning. and you start to say, well, I knew it. This was going to be a bad presentation. Nobody's interested. Nobody's asking questions, right? I always encourage people to say, well, okay, how do you know? How do you know? Like, look at the time. It's 3 o'clock on a Friday. People are yawning because it's been a long week. They're tired, right? This has nothing to do with you. So the idea of not taking things personal, reading people's minds and assuming the worst, right? If you are going to make up a story, at least they're there. At least they haven't walked out on you, right? They're still there. They haven't made an excuse to leave. So this idea of mind reading and assuming the worst case scenario can really be detrimental on our confidence. I always encourage that you flip the script and make yourself the hero in that situation. Even if people are yawning, tell yourself, you know what, at least they showed up on a Friday afternoon. They could have been somewhere, or Friday evening, they could have been somewhere else completely different. So even though they're dozing and yawning, at least they're here. And it's all a matter of perspective. And the other thing that I wanted to address, so Lala is saying in the chat, you could also consider making the mansplainer aware if you have the confidence to do so. In some cases, some lack self-awareness. Yes, thank you so much. So actually telling them, you know what, listen, I've got this, right? You are speaking over me, or I understand this. I went through training myself. This is my area of expertise. Just calling them out on it. And yeah, like Lola said, it might be something that they're just used to and no one has ever corrected them. So being able to do that, obviously in a way that won't cause any friction between you and a colleague, I usually often recommend starting off with saying, you know, oh, thank you so much for your ideas and suggestions, but you know what, I've actually studied this for a long time and I've done my research. So I really don't need your help with explaining, but thank you so much for trying. And, you know, instead of taking it personal and trying to get defensive or sulk about it, coming at it with a more pleasant, you know, thank you for trying. I don't need your help, but thank you anyways, and offering that as a form of correction for them. The other thing that came up was this whole idea of taking on too much, right? Boundaries, not having the boundaries and not saying no, taking on too much. You're exhausted, you have so much on your plate. Everybody else in the team seems to be okay with saying no, but for some reason, you're the one that they keep asking. And the reason they keep asking is because they say, well, Jane is going to say yes, so I might as well keep asking Jane. I really want to offer this idea that, first of all, you don't have to explain why you're saying no. I think many times as women, when we think about saying no, it causes us anxiety because we feel like, well, if I tell them that I have a lot on my plate right now, they might think I can't handle the job. Maybe when a promotion comes, or they are thinking about awards and that kind of thing, we won't be top of mind because we say no. But the truth is, I actually had someone that I was working with who the first time she said no to her manager congratulated her. Her manager was like, wow, well done. Good job for saying no. So it just goes to show that these people, sometimes your colleagues, even people in your life might just be testing your boundaries. Let's just see if she'll say yes. And sometimes they're actually happy for you when you do say no. So again, starting off by saying, you know what, I really wish I could help you out with this. I really, really wish, sounds like such a fun project or something fun that I would enjoy working with, but right now I simply can't. And then keeping your mouth closed, because the tendency is, again, to try and explain why and what, and, you know, give all the reasons. But the more reasons we give, the more inauthentic it becomes. And just getting really comfortable with saying, no, I'd love to, but I can't. Any questions so far? Any questions so far as we come to the last few slides?
Just a quick one. I think it will also be helpful to talk about those who say yes to everything because they're just interested in every project, not just because someone is putting it on their table.
Right.
They just like to be involved. They like to be involved in everything and they get excited about every project.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you so much for bringing that on. So the things that I would say to that are, one, when you are, there's a quote that says, Jack of all trades, or Jane of all trades, master of none. The risk of putting your hands in all of the different projects is, first of all, like I said, your attention and your energy is a finite resource. It's not, you don't have this like on infinite amount of energy and attention. So if you're putting your hands in all sorts of different projects, you're not going to be able to give your best to any individual one project. You're not going to perform at the best of your ability. And I see that so much, that people spread themselves so thin because they're doing too many things, yet they can't show up excellently in all these different things. So, and that's also a recipe for getting burnt out, because if you're using up all your energy, all your resources, emotionally, mentally, it's just not sustainable. And eventually a crash is going to happen. So the question you need to ask yourself is, what do I want to be known for in my organization, in my workplace, in my profession, even as a business owner? What do I want to be known for? And even when I'm tempted, oh, this looks really interesting, I'd love to go in that space. Again, this is where knowing what your goal is important. If you have a goal of, oh, I want to be known as the tech person in my department, then whatever tech opportunities come up, you know that, okay, this is what I want to do. This is interesting to me. But if other projects around maybe renovating the office, or the food drive, whatever it might be, all these other projects that come up and you're like, yeah, I'll volunteer, or yes, I'll take it on. You just end up being, when an opportunity comes and they say, okay, this opportunity, it's a tech opportunity, who can we call? No one's going to think about you because you haven't been known. You haven't made yourself known for a particular area of expertise. So even though it looks like you're being helpful, first of all, you're not being helpful because you're not showing up as your best to the team. And second of all, you're also hindering your own advancement because you aren't becoming an expert in a particular field. So those are the two main things that I would keep in mind, is not showing up because you're burning yourself out, and then also not being known for something can also hinder your career because you won't be top of mind when a specific opportunity comes your way. So really focusing on what your goals are, what you want to be known for, maybe 2 or 3 things, and then picking your project, signing up for projects based on that. Okay. So these were just my options when it came to the case that we discussed earlier. The first option is, yeah, we understand, just as the studies have shown, a good income is important. So yeah, go ahead and stay at your current job. If it is a temporary thing that you don't like, after going through those clarification questions, if it's a temporary thing, then work on your confidence and address them. If it's a coworker, talk to them in a way that is pleasant, but still correcting, still setting boundaries. If it's that your environment is too dull, then tweak it, right? So if it's that when you actually do that clarity exercise and realize, okay, you know what, the reason I don't like my job is because of something that I can actually change, then go ahead and change it. We also talked about a shift in perspective too, and how, okay, first of all, I'm saying that I don't love this job. I don't like this job. If I'm able to look at it as the income is good and focus more on the income instead of focusing more on why I don't like the job, is that enough to get me through, right? Shift your perspective, focus on the fact that this higher income is getting to you to your goals faster. That'll also be helpful. And then also realizing that doing that values exercise will be helpful. And this is something, honestly, that you can find online. If you're interested in what your values are, look for values exercise online and figure out what your values are, and look for company activities that align with those values, right? Irene had said earlier on, why does it have to be one or the other? So if your values lie in helping people, volunteering, sort of that NGO type of feel, maybe starting up a food drive or volunteering, supporting an organization, a charity, right? That might be something that will help balance out that sense of not really feeling fulfilled at work. And then we also talked about building confidence, because if you're constantly anxious, you're constantly beating yourself up at work, or you don't know anything, you're so silly, after all this, how could you make that mistake? If you're constantly doing that to yourself, of course, work is going to be a miserable place. So learning how to address your confidence, build your confidence by some of the things that we discussed earlier, addressing your inner critic, addressing the person that's mansplaining, watching your tone, watching your posture, all those things can work together to make that environment a more positive one. And then, of course, there's option 2, which is, yeah, of course, your happiness is important. Having that peace of mind and that happiness, your mental wellness, your emotional wellness is important. So maybe optimizing the financial perks of your old job before moving. We talked, Lola had raised earlier, having that cushion, that nest egg, building up your savings in such a way that if you decide to leave, you're not compromising the comfort of your family. So optimizing those financial perks, build up your savings, leaving the job, or maybe at this new job, is there room for negotiation? This is where confidence comes into play as well, knowing what your track record is and presenting that in such a way that you end up increasing your salary, getting a raise closer to where it was at that job that you really don't like but paid well. And then, as Irene had said earlier, finding something else that will supplement your income, right? Diversify your streams of income. Yes, this job is paying less, but is there something that you can do on the side that will make up the difference between what you were earning before and what you're earning now? Okay, whether that's investments, whether that's starting a side business, whether it's charging for services that you right now you're doing for free. Everyone is always calling you, can you help me plan this party? Can you help me bake this cake? Can you help me proofread my, all those things that people are calling you to do. Start charging for them. It's an uncomfortable thing to do, but when you think about the comfort of your family and your financial goals, that'll help you push you to get over that discomfort to actually get that thing done. And then option 3, which is, why don't you do both? We've alluded to that. Does it have to be one or the other? Irene said it so eloquently earlier, where why don't you stay at the high paying job and then find something that will fill your cup, right? Why does it have to be one or the other? You can also volunteer at an NGO and also work at your job that you don't love, but at least you have the balance of, you can have the best of both worlds. You have the balance of having a good income and the balance of working at an NGO in a volunteer type role. So again, to answer the question that was offered, do I stick to the good job, have a fixed income and be unhappy? Or do I move to my dream job, be happy, but the income is lower? I'm sure that by the time you go through the steps that we talked about, the clarifying questions, building your confidence, identifying whether this is something that's in line with your values and your goals, you'll be able to come up with the answer that works best for you. It might not work for the next person and people might question your decision, but at the end of the day, if you've been thoughtful about coming to the answer of your question, then you're more likely to be satisfied with the outcome. So I just wanted to spend the last few minutes in discussion mode. Any insights, any questions, anything that you wanted to offer to contribute to what we've discussed so far? Personally, I'm of the opinion that money is important, because if you leave a high-paying job, a good-paying job, and you're unhappy, you're basically leaving one set of unhappiness for a different set of unhappiness, right? So there are ways around it. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And Abiola says, interesting session and very good suggestions from everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and for your contributions. And so as we wrap things up, once again, if you'd like, I'm sure most of you are already followers on Instagram. If you aren't, please connect with me there. If you have any questions, if this is something that has been weighing on your mind, or if you know anybody who is in this kind of dilemma and they need someone to sort of talk through some of these things with, please get them in touch with me or connect with me either through Instagram or through my website where it says work with me. I'm happy to just see if there are any areas that I could offer help. Of course, many of you know that I offer coaching as well. So if this is something that interests you, really want to take a deeper dive into this, this is what I love to do. So I'll be happy to help you out. All right, ladies, thank you so much for coming. You'll definitely get notice of when the next wealth clinic will be. I'm trying to make them every 4 to 6 weeks because, like I say, it's something that I enjoy doing. I really enjoyed today. I hope you did as well. But you'll definitely get information on when the next clinic is. Be sure to spread the word and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye.